Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hey guys. Let's do something. Learn. Hopefully. Mark Felton Productions. Great channel. Preemptive like Britain's last U.S. territories. North Carolina honors World War II heroes. Was Hermann Goering gay? Maybe I gotta watch that one next. Hey guys. Hope everyone's doing well. I've never been to North Carolina. Well, I've driven through it, but I don't count driving through a state as having been there. So, it'd be nice to visit.
Back in April 2023, I published a video all about the only bit of American territory in Britain. The 1 acre of English countryside given in perpetuity
JFK?
to the United States by Great Britain in order that a memorial to slain President John F. Kennedy might stand on US soil at Runnymede, the place close to London where the Magna Carta, that foundational document of both British and later US democracy, was famously signed in 1215. I've linked the video in the description box and end screen, and the JFK Memorial is a truly beautiful place and a fitting tribute to the enduring friendship between our two nations. But many people don't realize that in the United States, 2 tiny slices of British territory still remain today, which I'm sure will surprise many of my American viewers.
Yeah. Magna Carta, we kind of see Britain as our daddy. Daddy is not the right word. I take that back. Part of me almost wants to restart the video because I feel weird saying, I take that back.
The US gained independence from Britain in 1783 and fought the British again in 1812 to 14 when we tried to reintegrate you.
I'm not restarting. Okay, sorry.
British again in 1812 to 14 when we tried to reintegrate you at gunpoint back into the British Empire. Since then, we have refrained from fighting each other, and something else has developed, the so-called special relationship. However, the little slices of Britain in America date from World War II, and specifically the German U-boat campaign along the eastern seaboard, which could be better described as a slaughter, and was christened by the U-boat men the Second Happy Time. The first happy time was the U-boat campaign launched by Hitler against the British Isles in 1940. Being an island nation, the UK relies then as now upon importing a lot of vital goods from raw materials to food.
Oh my god, I'd love to see a video on just this.
And as now
look at that, putting the propeller on. Oh my god, if there's a video anyone knows about just creating British airplanes.
On importing a lot of vital goods from raw materials to food and oil. Hitler decided to try and starve Britain to the negotiating table following his capture of France in June 1940 and the ignominious withdrawal of what remained of the British Expeditionary Force from the Dunkirk beaches. From July to October 1940, German U-boats sank an astonishing 282 Allied ships off the northwestern approaches to Ireland. That is almost 1.5 million tons of merchant shipping sent to the bottom of the Atlantic, plus of course their vital cargoes from Canada, the United States and South America, vital to supply a battered Britain that was facing a German invasion and would also fight and win the aerial Battle of Britain in the same period.
I think German U-boats did go into the southern Atlantic, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember being a little bit surprised by that fact. It might have been very little, but
it was called the First Happy Time because the Royal Navy struggled to effectively react to the U-boats, which suffered minimal losses until new Allied technology eventually evened the score in 1941 onwards. Once the United States entered the war against Germany in December 1941, the U-boat service was redirected to that nation's eastern seaboard, enacting a vast slaughter of Allied merchant vessels in an area completely unprepared for anti-submarine warfare. Between
I'm pausing a lot, but I wonder how often the upper deck guns of submarines were used.
In an area completely unprepared for anti-submarine warfare. Between January and August 1942, U-boats sank 609 Allied ships, totaling 3.1 million tons, and the period was much more successful than the first one launched against the British Isles themselves. 1/4 of all ships sunk by U-boats in World War II were sunk close to the shores of the eastern United States, with the loss of thousands of sailors of many nationalities. In the state of North Carolina are a group of islands called the Outer Banks, and on one of these islands, Ocracoke, has a rich history. First noted on a map in 1524 by Italian explorer Giovanni di Verrazzano, in 1585 famed English explorer Sir Walter Raleigh ran aground on Ocracoke Island.
Capital of North Carolina, I believe, is Raleigh, named after him.
The English settlement at Roanoke Island failed.
Classic.
But in 1663, Ocracoke had become part of the English Carolina colony, but Ocracoke itself remained permanently unsettled until 1750. Before that date, its only residents being pirates, using the place as a safe haven. In 1718, the infamous English pirate Edward Teach, better known to history as Blackbeard, was killed on Ocracoke. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the island was a quiet backwater, famous for its fishing communities. But then, in 1942, Ocracoke and the other islands in the Outer Banks found themselves in the front line of World War II, with German submarines destroying ships within sight of the shore. The islanders could see and hear the destruction of ships from the beaches. The US Navy was unprepared for such an onslaught, but the Royal Navy sent what help it could in the form of 24 armed trawlers, which were based in American ports, to try and patrol the eastern seaboard and attack and destroy German U-boats. It was, of course, vitally important to both countries that the shipping routes across the Atlantic be defended. One of these little ships was HMT Bedfordshire, manned by 37 sailors from the Royal Navy and the Royal Canadian Navy. On the 11th of May 1942, early in the morning, the Bedfordshire was torpedoed by U-558 off the coast of Ocracoke Island. Her captain and all 36 crewmen were killed. The first torpedo, fired by Kapitän Leutnant Günther Kretsch, missed, but the second scored a direct hit on the 443-ton British warship, completely destroying her. On the 14th of May, 2 bodies washed ashore on Ocracoke, that of Sub-Lieutenant Thomas Cunningham and ordinary telegraphist Stanley Craig. The British naval uniforms confirmed the fate of the missing Bedfordshire. Draped with Royal Navy white ensigns, the US authorities buried the men in a small plot next to the main cemetery in Ocracoke village. Soon afterwards, 2 more bodies washed up but couldn't be identified. They too were laid to rest at Ocracoke village alongside the other British dead. Nearby, on Hatteras Island, a 5th body of an unidentified British seaman came ashore on the 21st of May. He was buried in a small plot beside the grave of a British merchant mariner who had been killed a month earlier. And then, in late May, a 6th and final body, identified as Seaman Alfred Dyson, washed up at Swan Quarter, North Carolina, and was buried at a cemetery in Creeds, Virginia. The local people of Ocracoke and Hatteras decided in 1976, the bicentennial U.S. Declaration of Independence, to permanently honor the British sailors who had died trying to defend the U.S. eastern seaboard by declaring that both of the small cemeteries were to be in perpetuity leased to Great Britain, becoming 2 tiny parcels of British land within the United States. Formally, the cemeteries are administered by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, that organisation which deals with all British and Commonwealth war cemeteries all over the world, including providing the headstones. Maintenance of the graves is provided by the United States Coast Guard and local people. The Royal Navy's white ensign flies permanently over both cemeteries, and on the 11th of May every year a ceremony is held at both places to remember the fallen men.
These ceremonies commemorate the lives of those sailors who were lost in the trawler Bedfordshire and the oiler Delfino, which were sunk during the Second World War. It's very important that we commemorate these people because what they achieved during their time and the sacrifice they gave ensured that we maintained our freedom from tyranny from Nazi Germany. It allowed us to maintain the sea lines of communication between the United States and the United Kingdom, and then ultimately take on the Germans in Europe and defeat them after D-Day in 1945.
His accent is very interesting. For a second, I thought he was American, and then I'm like, wait, no, he's British. And then I'm like, wait, is he American? I'm curious what British accent that is.
During the 1940s, only the landmark events were ever reported in the media. Few heard of the Bedfordshire or other events that unfolded right here off our coast in the early days of World War II.
Yep.
Few remember the sacrifices of our British and Canadian friends as they protected our shores and shipping lanes as we struggled to mobilize our own naval forces. But the people of Ocracoke Island remember, the United States Coast Guard remembers, and our British and Canadian allies remember.
Ready! Aim! Fire! Ready! Aim! Fire! Ready! Aim! Fire!
Those of the crew who were never recovered from the sea are remembered both in Ocracoke and Hatteras on plaques, and also in the Royal Navy Patrol Service Memorial in Lowestoft, Suffolk in the UK. The wreck of the Bedfordshire, discovered in 1980, is a protected war grave under British law. To local Ocracokers, the cemetery on their island is referred to as being Forever England, recalling that famous World War I poem The Soldier by Rupert Brooke, which begins with these immortal lines. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below. Are administered by the
It's well, I hope most of you know that the love I have for Britain. But I probably have. Yeah, I mean, America is notorious, or is known for, playing a part in World War I and World War II, but being very far away from the main action and always learning about even the smallest military actions against us towards our coast is strange and surprising, but then hearing about people who actually lost their lives so close to our shores would be very small comparison to other atrocities that countries experienced in World War II. But to us, it's a giant reminder that of the closeness of the United States and Great Britain and Canada, and it's a very nice video. So love it, love you guys. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. It was a pretty short reaction, and I'm only at like 14 minutes here of a 10-minute reaction, so I feel like I didn't really talk as much as I probably should have. So great video. Love y'all. Would appreciate any comments down below, and I hope I will see you next time. We can keep on learning together. Bye, guys.